I've now finished the rigging of the cranes. Now, what I did is I used some of these food ties, melted them off the plastic, and then just poked them through the holes at the top of the crane, and then pulled them round, and then got it as even as I could over the actual crane pulley. Now, I'm not sure if historically there was two lines at each side of the pulley, but to be honest, I've left them on because trying to cut them off is going to be a pain, and to be honest, I think it might make it worse, so I've left the two lines on the crane. So after I pulled it through, got it even, then I just put a drop of super glue, pulled the actual crane arm up to the angle I wanted it on each crane, and then just bent the wires down while the super glue was drying, and each of the actual ties each side of the pulley. So you've got the two on the stern upper deck, you've got two on the stern lower deck, then you've got the two on the middle deck, and then you've got the two on the forecastle on the lower deck there. But the cranes are not looking too bad actually. To be honest, I had to raise them on the bow, the forecastle section, because if I'd have left them lying flat, it would have like covered those stairs up. So that's why I put them at the angle, but they're not looking too bad. You know, not bad at all. So that's the cranes done. Continuing work with the food ties for the rigging. I've now rigged up the lifeboats and the davits on the forward boat deck of both sides and on the rear boat deck of both sides. So I melted off 16 of the food ties off the plastic, but as I was working down the lifeboat deck, I realised that I could actually rig two lifeboat stations with one piece of the food tie. Now on the first forward lifeboat, you can see that the actual davits are leaning out over the side of the superstructure deck, because what Academy should have done, they should have given me those extra two lifeboats so I could have hanged a lifeboat over the side of the deck. So what I've had to do with the food tie on this one, I've had to like measure it and put it in, but I've had to bring it way forward to meet the davit on both sides. So basically what I did is I got the food tie, jabbed it in the hole, got it to meet the one davit on this side, got my little dinky pliers, and then just like bent it round, got it as straight as I could, got it to meet the other davit on the other side, bent it round again so it would jab in that hole, and then I just cut the food tie in half and then put it to one side for the next lifeboat. And then I just had to trim some of the edges because they were a bit too tall. They was actually above the davit. Once I got them in the right length, I just got my tweezers, which is very, very fiddly indeed, and just put them in the hole, and then just got them to meet between each davit, and then I just got the super glue and then just put it on the top of the davit, and then just got my cocktail stick and just went round the sides and underneath and on the top, so I got super glue all the way around the food tie so it would actually glue really well. So I did all four on the forward boat deck on the one side, and then on the same side I then did the rear boat deck, pretty much rinse and repeat. Let that dry and cure for a couple of hours, turn the Titanic round, and then did the lifeboat deck forward and rear on the other side. Now on the 2012 version I didn't rig the cranes up, and I didn't rig the lifeboat stations because at the time it told me to do it with thread and I couldn't get the thread to work. That's why with these food ties, because you know it's quite stiff metal, it actually moulds and bends the way you want it to, so you haven't got to, you know, involve yourself trying to get like the flappiness of the thread in there and then trying to get it to meet that, and you know, and plus it would have like drooped down over time, so at least with these food ties they won't droop. So even the Academy version tells you to do it with a thread, but now I've done it with the food ties and I've done the boat deck. It's looking really nice. I'm really well chuffed that the food tie trick has worked out. It's now time to start the mast work. So here's what's left of my F-sprue. You got the front and rear mast and the mast ladders. But in the bottom of the box, Academy in their infinite wisdom have given me a K-sprue. Instruction for new material mast part. This K1 and 2 parts are made of the new strong material and replacement and upgrade in existing F14 and 15 parts, which are these. So it looks like the ones on the K-sprue are actually a stronger plastic, but they do look as thin as the ones on the F-sprue. So what I've done, these are moulded in black plastic, so I've primed them because obviously I've got to paint the mast. And the F-sprue is also moulded in black plastic, which you can see the remnants of on this edge here. So I've sprayed them in the primer. So now I've got to cut these off and paint them. And then the front mast will go in the forecastle hole there, and the rear mast will go in the stern hole there on the middle deck. So let's get cracking on. I've been dreading this. Right, starting the mast work, I've mounted both the forecastle and the stern masts in now. With the forecastle one, you just pop that into place as a square hole. I had to sand down the bottom peg of the mast slightly to get it in. Once I put that on, before I put that on, I put the E19 crow's nest perch into place. I had to widen the hole on the back of that, and then that sits on a square tab. So that's what I've done now. I haven't had to glue it in, it's actually quite a nice fit. So I painted the masts, both the masts, on the sprue with the number 26 Humbrol brown, and then I cut them off the sprue, and then I had to sand where I cut them off, and then I had to just do a top-up coat. But like I said, once I sanded it down a little, fit into that square perfect. Now on the stern, there's like a little hole, a circular hole, and on the deck underneath that there's actually a little square peg mounting hole. I probably should have widened that, to be honest, but I didn't know what it was for at the time. But the actual square peg is actually sitting on top of the square hole. It hasn't gone in. But I've glued these with the Revel glue, and then both dry and really stiff. So I've now got to rig this now, start the rigging. Right, I've started the mast rigging now, the first part of it. The first thing I did was this line here and that line there. That goes up to just above the bell of the crow's nest. As it says on the plans, it's B. So I put those on first. Waited for the super glue to cure, then I put the ladders in. The ladders go into those little holes there on the deck. And then there's a little mounting hole there, and there's a mounting notch on the inside of the ladder, so you just push that into place. While the glue was drying, I got my little peg and rested it up against the mast. It's not that heavy, so it's not going to bend it, and just held those into place. Once that had dried, I then started to do most of the other rigging. I haven't done these two yet, which glue onto those that stanchion there, and one glues onto here because I'm waiting for this stanchion to dry. And the blob glue tack is stopping it moving forward because it kept trying to want to move forward while the glue's drying. So I started with these two lines here, which is L on the plans. You got one just above the light, the mast light, and then you got one which goes at the top here. So I did those two first with the super glue. Then going on to the next part of the plans, you got the rest of it. You got the two A's, the other two B's from that same spot there, which go up to the top. You got the G, which goes in the middle. So I did the middle ones first, and then I did the top ones, or did the middle one with the G, then the top ones, and it's not looking too bad. Now at the top of the mast here, you can see where I've glued them all on. It's not perfect, but to be honest, on the 2012 edition it was the same. It weren't perfect, but I mean in the middle it ain't too bad, but on the top it's not perfect, but it'll do. So that's all the forecastle done. So the sterns rigging, first thing I did was these two lines off the bottom, the actual bottom deck. Those glue probably about the same height as the crow's nest on the front mast, so I did those two first. Then I glued the ladder on, but you can see that the ladder is slightly inwards and then goes outwards again. There's nothing I can do about that. There's your mounting notch like on the forecastle mast, but unfortunately, because I haven't been able to glue it all the way down into that little square hole underneath that deck, I can't get it to reach the hole, because if I'd have done that, then those wouldn't have gone in the holes there. There was actually like about 3 mil above them. So I just cut the mounting notches off and just glued them to that there. I'm just going to pause this video a sec so I can get to the other section of the plans. Right, going to the plans, like I said, with the F lines, glued them on first, then glued the ladders. And then I did all the rest of this. So I did, there was one line from the deck there, from that deck house, that goes into the middle. Then you got the one just above that, which is from there, one from the smokestack line, and the other one goes up to the top. And that's what I've done there. It's not looking too bad. It's like a spaghetti maze, but that there in the middle, it looks a hell of a lot better than it does on the forecastle mast. It's a bit more neater. And like I said, these are left for the flags, because it tells you to glue it right to the top, but to be honest, I think that top bit there and that top bit there, I think them are going to be for the main lines that are going across, which I haven't done yet. And that's going to be a bitch to crack, but like I said, the stern lines are not looking too bad either. Right, once the rigging was done, I then glued the smokestacks on. You've got the three with the normal grid there, and then you've got the one with the slightly different grid on the back there, the covers. So I glued that on first, just ran some glue around the edges, because if you remember, I'd cut them mounting notches off because I couldn't get them to fit in because of that paint in there, and just plop those in one at a time. I just got to wait for them smokestacks to dry, but they're not looking too bad either. So right, I've now done the last of the forecastle mast rigging work. I've put it against the white of my upright freezer so you might be able to see it better. So you got the line coming up from the deck there, and you got the other line from the same the other side, wrapped around that little like mini crane, if you can call it, the stanchion, whatever. Now I took the blue tack away and it's dried perfect, but as I was putting these on, it kept wanting to try and bring that forward a little bit more. So hence I pulled that as tight as I could. It is a bit loose, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter that much. But I bought it, tied it round the once, put the super glue on, cut the excess off, and then did it for this side, tied it round once with the last bit of super glue that was on there already, and then tied off the excess. And you've got this line here, which is, I think this was D, but it's coming out the same hole as that one that goes there. And I've pulled that up to the L mast line, and then just wrapped it round once, put a drop of super glue on, and then wrapped it round again. And then once the super glue dried, I just cut the excess off with my scissors, so that ain't looking too bad now. So with that, with the bow mast and the stern mast. All I've got to do now is rig this mast to mast.